Hi everyone, hope you're having a good Thursday. I thought I'd share some of the colorings that I have been doing this month. I was hoping to have more on here. However, life is lifing and it kind of ground to a halt, so I'm going to show you two in real time. Well, one and a half, I guess. So I didn't show the book for this one, which I hate, but Sugah Sweet published a book. It says Coloring the Year, I think. Yeah, Coloring the Year. I'll put it down in the description. And I thought I would try to work on this because the cool thing is each month has 3 pages. Some of them have a couple days on them, some of them have just one. And they're all unique, like holidays each month. So, like you can, I'm saying like a lot. You can see here, this is January 2nd, National Sci-Fi Day. Did I do this on January 2nd? No. Have I made any more progress in this for January now that we're on the 29th? No. So, what I'll probably do is go to the next holiday that's coming up, which is February 2nd, National Hedgehog Day, and maybe start on that and then come back to some of those pages as I can. So, however, I just thought it would be something neat, and they're not full pages, so it doesn't feel like as heavy of a lift. And I'm going to try. And even if I only get one, even if I don't get all the holidays each month, um, then I still think I'm doing, even if I just do one a month, that's something. So, like with my plans video, this year is very much going to be vibes type coloring because I just trying to plan things doesn't seem to be working for me. And I've been having a hard time getting back into my hobbies because, again, life, which I'll be talking about to some extent on this video. So I figured, again, this is not a plan. I'm also tricking my brain because the moment I say plan, my rebellious subconscious is like, no, no, I refuse to let you. So the moment I try to set something, and I've looked it up. I believe it's an actual thing. I'll have to talk about that at some point. But it's pretty funny because it's not necessarily being like stubborn and refusing to do what other people tell you, but it's like, it's not that, and it's not that I do that. It's just, anyway, I'll talk about it later. Um, don't you dare. Oh boy. If our power goes off, I'm going to be so mad. Oh gosh. I tell y'all. I said it was the 29th, but let me tell you what the day I think it really is January 3759th. Because this month, I tell you what, since about the 5th of the month, it's been like January's been like 6 months long. Craziness. Anyway, before I get into all that, I am coloring this pretty casually with marker. Just shading if I feel like it, kind of just vibing as I go along if there's certain things I want to do. I add in some different, I think some metallic markers into it, and I do a little bit with the background. Again, just trying to ease back into coloring and just going with the flow. So, um, yeah, and then you'll see me also complete a whip from Deborah Muller's book. That's also a project book of mine, Halloween All Year Long. I had October pages last year, and then after Bagheera passed away, that project has kind of ground to a halt. I am a little bit optimistic that we might do some pictures for February, but let's see how this weekend goes. Let's see how we feel actually going into February 1st before I say that with confidence. Um, so you'll see me work on a whip in that, finishing up one of the October pictures. And like I said, I was hoping to have more, but things got rougher the last couple weeks, and so we are just gonna make do as we can. I've realized I was kind of overdue for a color and chat, um, so I figured I would do that. I am extremely tired, so if there is a lot of likes and ums, more so than my usual stuttering through videos, then I apologize. It's one of those things where I'm not at my best, but I'm at the point where I think it's good enough, you know? Anyway, okay. So I am going to kind of just chat about life. I think I got some random pictures to show. I'm going to try to do things a little different this time. I'm going to try to talk about some of the positive things first. I realized that my life's been a bit of a downer for a long time. And it's been hard to be positive or funny or anything on a lot of these videos. So I thought I would try a different tactic this time because while I acknowledge that that is me and I'm not trying to cover it up, I do realize there is some benefit to focusing on the positives in my life when everything is running amok. And also, I realize that very few people are, a lot of people are going through it. And there might be things, there might be just things like you can't take any more sad news, you can't take any more bad news. And so I figured I'd do positives in the first part of the video, and then I could talk about like the reality of things in my life. And that way, if y'all don't want to hear about that, you know, you can just listen to part of the video. I will probably have timestamps. Um, I don't know how detailed they'll be, but we'll just see as we go along. And I'm doing these in real time. I didn't speed them up. If I run out of things to say, I'll show you you see both finished pictures in this video, and then we'll just call it good and hopefully have a completed pages video Monday, not Monday, Sunday, probably. But I thought I would get this out too because, like me, a lot of people have been kind of stuck in their house this week due to weather. And, you know, maybe you just want to hear about somebody else's problems for a while. Like, well, at least I'm not dealing with that, right? Like, oh, that's terrible. There's going to be some dark humor in this. I'm just going to warn you. There might be some light profanity. We'll just have to see. It really depends on how much I get done before I finish it up tonight, and then what state I'm in when I come back. So now that I've said that all, oh, and two disclaimers, of course. I do realize that everybody has it difficult right now, and I am not trying to minimize my problems. And I will briefly touch on some major, like, a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about is stuff going directly on in my life. And there are a few reasons for that. One, I am one of those people I really can only take so much, particularly lately, where I just feel like I'm going through one traumatic event after another, and I have had to make a decision of find a balance of being informed about the world as a whole versus trying to keep what sanity I have left. So, a lot of this is focused on what's going on in my life, not to downplay that the world is a dumpster fire right now. And I'm not trying to be selfish or anything like that. It's just there's only so much room I have. And I will briefly touch on a few things that I just can't not, I just couldn't get away, has been kind of a big thing. So I'm going to warn you of that. Um, and like I said, I realize everybody has it rough. I'm not trying to minimize anybody else's troubles or act dramatic or anything, but this is just reality for me right now. And like I said, particularly when it comes to things in the world, things, these days, everything's pretty controversial. The policy I've always had on here is obviously all of this is my opinion and my feelings. I'm not going to argue with anybody on stuff. Um, we have still, at least to a point, a open internet and free access for everybody to create an account and say what they want to say on their accounts to a point, obviously, barring individual restrictions on those accounts. If you don't like what I have to say and you feel differently and this and that, again, I would recommend, you know, just don't watch it. There are plenty of other channels out here. If you feel strongly enough that you have to unsubscribe, I wish you the best and no hard feelings. Um, but how I feel is how I feel, and I'm not going to downplay that to make anybody feel better. And if you really are upset about it, everybody can make a free YouTube account. I am just not going to have arguing and issues in my comments. This is my spot. Um, in the US, in particular, we have free speech laws, but that doesn't mean free from consequences. And while we have an open and wide internet for people to express their opinions, um, I can I can moderate my comment section how I like. And again, if you don't like that, I wish you the best. No hard feelings. Um, but that's always kind of been my policy. So if I touch on anything controversial, just a heads up on that. All right, now that I've got all that out of the way. So some positives slash funny stories. Some of these things I'll talk about in the positive and the negative category. So a weird positive is I have a Nexplanon implant, and it is. I really don't want to say what it is because of the way things are these days, but it is to prevent certain things from happening. Um, and it's also to help because I have polycystic ovarian syndrome. It does help with the side effects from that, like the hormone displacement and things like that. But it's an implant in your arm, and it's supposed to be replaced every 3 years. And I think this is the third one I've had, and it's worked really well for me. Um, I was on pills and some different things, and they were causing a lot of side effects that I just was having trouble living with. So this has been very helpful. However, last year it was due to be renewed, and the I got a call last January, and they're like, "Oh, well, they just approved that it can be replaced every 5 years." I got a call from a nurse or receptionist or somebody, and they're like, "So you don't have to get it replaced right now." And I was just, that was right on the eve of a lot of things changing in the US, and I was a little dubious of that. But I was like, okay, sure. However, I started having a lot of issues last year. Actually, towards the end of that 3 years, even in December, I was having mood swings. I was having a lot of what I thought were perimenopausal symptoms, and a lot of just weird things happening that don't normally happen with all that. We'll just leave it at that. And I kind of watched it for the year until my annual OBGYN visit, and I brought it up to him, and I love my OBGYN. He's amazing. If I didn't have him as a doctor, I would probably want a lady doc, a female doc for that, but he's amazing, and he's been my OBGYN for years, and so he's a good one. Because the moment I told him what was happening, he said, "Yeah." He's like, "Here's the thing." He said, the implant, this one, like some studies show that it can be good for 5 years. However, the like National Board of not pediatrics, but whatever they call OBGYN. I can't pronounce it. Like gynecology or something. I can pronounce gynecology. It was something else I was looking for. Um, he was saying like the national board or whatever, there's some controversy about it because that's not necessarily what they recommend. Because apparently, past the 3 year mark, it releases more progesterone, I guess, in your body and can cause the very symptoms I was experiencing for the last year. And he's like, "So that is a sign to me that we need to replace it." And so I was like, "Fantastic." However, the last person that put the implant in my arm, which was not him, botched it and implanted it deeper than it should have been. And so my OBGYN was like, "Here's the thing. He didn't say it like this, but I interpreted it as, if you don't want me to go in there with a scalpel and root around in your arm till I find it, we're going to need a room with like a scope or something that I can find it, through that and easily remove it." And unfortunately, I guess they used to have a room like that and they don't anymore because all the stuff's moving over to the hospitals. And so I had to go through an actual like same day surgery experience for this. And let me tell you, it was one of the most over dramatic things for such a small, like he's literally just cutting my arm, looking in there with the scope till he finds it, removing it, and then putting another one in closer to where it's supposed to be, which is directly under the skin. And I'm not knocking the hospital. It was actually the closer one I prefer anyway, so I was happy about that. But there was just I appreciate that they're thorough. Like no matter what type of surgery you're having, you have to do like the antibacterial soap 2 times, like the night before, and clean sheets, and like all these different things that I had to prep for this. But it just, and I appreciate that and understand that they're just trying to cover themselves, but it did feel a bit like overkill. But it was funny. It happened on the 3rd, I think. No, the 2nd. That's right. And so we had to be there, I think, at 6 o'clock in the morning. And my husband was more nervous than me. We drove there. It was about a 45-minute drive, which is also unfortunate. But my husband had to drive me because they did have to, they called it twilight, but we'll get to that. I wasn't aware of nothing. And I'll explain that in a minute. But it was definitely where somebody needed to drive me home. And so he took me. And when I tell you, like, if somebody had like opened a bottle of soda wrong near him, I think he would have jumped clean out of his seat. He was so nervous. And I was nervous about it too. I mean, anytime you have to go into a setting like that, even if it's something minor, it still feels scary because it's such a production, right? And I was nervous too. Um, but I, of course, like to use dark humor and humor as a mechanism. And my husband hates doctors. I think that was part of it. But man, he was, what was it? Off Golden Girls, that phrase Blanche uses, jumpier than a virgin at a prison rodeo or something like that. Like he was so nervous, and I think it's cute. I think he was nervous for me. He didn't like being there because he doesn't like doctors and hospitals, but I think he was very nervous for me too. So it was very sweet, and I appreciate it. But I teased him. I try not to tease him too bad, but I teased him a little bit, and I said, "Listen," I said, "if I said this is not a trick." I said, if you're worrying that, a bunch of guys are going to jump out and grab you for like, it was all a ruse to get you here for a checkup or something. I promise you it's not that. Like, we're not trying to play a trick on you. So I teased him a little bit about that. I said, I promise we're here, really here for me. And it was just, like I said, just trying to be funny. And bless his heart, he was nervous. Heck, I was nervous too. But they put us in the room and we're sitting there, and the anesthesia team comes in, and I'm like, why do I have a team? I mean, yeah, I don't need some guy with like a moonshine still set up like this'll do you. Like, I'm not saying it's got to be that, but I'm just saying I feel like having more than like one person in there isn't really necessary for this. And the thing that was getting me is every time somebody come in to ask me what I was getting done, they all looked at me weird. Like they had no idea what I was trying to tell them. And that was making me nervous because I'm like, what do they think I'm here for? And the anesthesia team comes in, and I again try to explain to them, and they look very confused. And they're like, so this is BC. And I said, yeah, but it's in my arm. I'm like, it's not down there. Like, I was starting to get concerned. Like, am I going to have to, get a permanent marker and just like write a bunch of X's on my legs with arrows pointing and saying no, and then a big circle on my arm that says yes? Like, they just couldn't comprehend it wasn't the type of BC that happens down there, which the majority of it does, I realize. And so finally Bennett came in, and he's like, yeah, he said, I had to explain to him what was happening. He said, I've only had to do this 3 times, where, complications have come up from a previous implant. So he's like, they're not super familiar with this procedure. But like the fact that it's him doing it, I had complete confidence everything would be fine. But let me tell you, if it had been a different guy doing it, other than uh Ben, I said his name, but he's my OBGYN. If it had been somebody different than him doing it, I would have been like, okay, give me a permanent marker, give me some paper, give me anything that I can do to make sure they don't cut in the wrong place, because we are not having that happen today. They are not going near that zone. That is a no zone today. You better be looking at my left upper arm, and that better be the only place you're looking and you're cutting today. So I, again, was just trying to find some humor in it. And they said, yeah, it's like Twilight. Like you'll be kind of you won't be aware of what's going on, but you'll be conscious. No, they wheeled me in there, and we were talking about the new Fallout show. Me and one of the anesthesiologists, and I was talking about how awesome it was. And I promise y'all, it felt like I got halfway through the sentence, and then I woke up, and like I almost wanted to finish the sentence, right? Like that is how quick it happened. I was out, I was talking, I was out, and then I was suddenly back in the when I came to the recovery room, and like it almost felt like I could just finish the thought right there, like he was still there. And I don't know if anybody else has ever, well, I mean, I'm sure plenty of people have been put under for procedures and stuff, but it is the most disconcerting thing. It wasn't as bad as the endoscopy I had. I remember the last time I had an endoscopy, like I panicked because I felt like I couldn't breathe. And but this time I did tell them I had sleep apnea, so I think they might have done something different just to make sure I was getting plenty of air, which probably helped. But it was so disconcerting. And then I had a nurse there, and y'all, I know this comes as a shock, but I talk a lot. I know, right? Like, who would have ever thought? And that poor woman, as much as I talk, as much as I talk when I'm not drugged up, when I'm not up on, when I'm not hyped up on medications, I prattled that poor woman's ear off. Like, I don't even remember what I was talking about. But that poor woman got told, hopefully not all my secrets, because I don't, not that I have any really, but like I don't know what I was telling her, but she had to just listen to me. Heck, half the time she might not have been there, and I just thought she was there and I was still talking. Like, it was so funny. But when I tell y'all, after I got done, I didn't feel a thing. And that is the happiest I have felt in a long time. Like, I don't know what they gave me, but I was so happy. I was like, dang, everything's great. Like, this is fantastic. I was in such a good mood for the rest of the day. Um, but no, everything went fine. Very, I mean, once I took the bandage off and saw, I was like, really? That's it? They even use stitches. They use some steri strips or whatever they're called to bandage it up. And yeah, he wasn't playing about the new one. Like, it is literally like right under my skin. I think it's gotten less sensitive as time has went on, but like he wasn't messing around. Cause I told him, I said, I don't want to do this again in 3 years. He said, hopefully this is your last one because I'm 45. And I said, I don't want to do this again in 3 years. He said, well, we're going to try to avoid that. And so he wasn't messing around. But now that it's been there a couple weeks, I've gotten kind of used to it. But yeah, just got a little, probably inch long scar. Like, it really just wasn't a big to do. I just didn't, it needed something slightly more elevated than just digging around in there for it with me liquored up. You know, I needed a little bit more than wild west medicine surgery methods, but what I got also felt a little bit like overkill. However, that was one of the few things my insurance didn't give me a lot of grief about. So I am grateful for that. However, I had to approve getting this medication like this implant 3 or 4 different times by 3 or 4 different places. Like the company that makes it, which is the brand I said, by Walgreens. And then when I put in the authorization for it, they didn't get it in their system, I guess. So then I had to call and verbally authorize it. And I'm like, why? And I just current climate, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, it just took way too many steps to get that actual medication, or I keep calling it medication, that actual implant delivered to the doctor's office. And fortunately, it got there in time. So, but that would have been really annoying. Anyway, I already have noticed an improvement in the issues I was having last year. So I think that was a big part of it. I may still be having perimenopause. Like I am a part of that We Do Not Care club that that lady started. Like there's definitely some symptoms there, probably there, but it's not as big as I thought it was. So I think a lot of it had to do with that. So I think they're cool. And a lot of people don't know about that option, so I try to talk about it. It's worked well for me, but as I've noted, there are some considerations in my experience that I feel like I should say, so people know. And yeah, so fingers crossed. I don't have to do this again. Maybe in 3 years. Maybe we will shift to that time in a woman's life, or maybe we won't. I don't know. My body has betrayed me ever since the start of the other tail end of this. So I don't anticipate it's gonna give up the ghost without a fight. So anyway, funny story. Ended up ultimately being, worked out well, and grateful for that. The cats are doing well. They are the living cats in my house are doing well. Um, I was gone a couple different times where I went on that trip with my brother last month, and then I had a work trip this month that I'll talk about. And Winry has weathered both really well. Um, we had to change her appetite stimulant to every other day. We switched briefly to pills, to tablets, compounded tablets, because she was on Mirtaz, which is like most of the time a transdermal med you put in their ear. And we noticed that it was drying and causing flaking and kind of tearing at her fragile skin or her ear. So we switched to tablets, and the tablets just made her super anxious, super fidgety. She couldn't rest. Um, Her appetite was great, but like she just seemed uncomfortable. Like she just couldn't relax. So we went to the Mirtaz every other day. So if you do ever get that for your cat, it has been life changing for her. I think that is a huge reason why she's still here with us, so she can maintain her weight. But just note that it can cause some issues in the ear. What we found helps is we take, she'll get the Meritaz application in the morning in her ear, and that night, after about 12 hours, I will take a tiny little bit of Vaseline and put it, because it's supposed to be in the top part of their inner ear. I'll put a little bit of Vaseline on the top part of their ear, let it soak in overnight, and then wipe out with a soft cloth the next morning. And any of the residual from that Meritaz will come right off her ear. And that has really helped her. Her ears are kind of sensitive anyway. I mean, she's 18 and a half, y'all. I mean, everything on her is sensitive at this point. But her ears are a little sensitive anyway. So I hated for her to be, uncomfortable before with that. But this Vaseline tricks really worked. And it's light. It doesn't seem to annoy her as long as I don't use too much. And it should generally, let me confirm that. I believe it's safe for use with cats. It's generally safe for cats in small amounts to treat dry paws or minor skin irritations. You don't want them to have excessive indigestion because it can cause like digestive upset. But in small amounts, like I'm using it, it really seems to be working. I'm not a vet, however, so if you were using Meritaz or something and you want to try that trick, check with your vet first. Don't just take my word for it. But it really has been a game changer for her. And even though we went to every other day with her medication, she was taking it daily. She's been maintaining her weight, and I'm over the moon about it. She plays with her mice most of the time during the night, which is the worst possible time because we're trying to sleep. But she does play. She does seem active, but she does sleep a lot. Again, I contribute that to her age. Um, she goes upstairs. She loves her heating pads. We have the heating pads on pretty much every moment of the day we're awake, and she is gravitating between three of them. If it's really warm, she might lay a couple places that aren't on the pads, but for the most part, that's where she's existing. Oh, so as you saw, we finished that one picture and I didn't acknowledge it. Now I have a whip in here. This is a picture out of Halloween All Year Long by Deborah Muller. I had painted the background with Dylusions Shimmer Paint in like the teal color last October, and then I didn't do anything else. A couple weeks ago, I sat and went ahead and did a marker layer on the witch and the kitty and everything. And I figured I just wanted to do some extras because it would be fun. So I saved the extras for this video. We're going to do some acrylic paint for the flames. I'm using the King Art Pro acrylic pens, I think is what they're called. We're going to do that on the flames, and then I'm going to use some, what are these called? I'll put them in the description, but they're called super golden markers for like the little things, swirly things and bubbles going above the pot. And I think finally what I do is take a white gel pen and go around those kind of wafty scent waves or whatever they're supposed to be, steam coming up off the pot, to kind of make them stand out a little bit from the background. So that's the plan for the remainder of this video and for this picture. Just wanted to play around with some different things. And but no, she's handled me being gone really well, which is great. I think having smaller trips has helped her and me going to stay the night with my parents like every couple weeks or something has really helped her get used to me being gone a little more. She doesn't like it still. She tolerates my husband, but she doesn't have to have any of her fluids or shots while I'm gone. She gets the pill equivalent of her meds, which don't work as well, but my husband does not do well with needles, so I'm not going to ask him to do that. And, but no, and I'm grateful for that, like beyond grateful. And the other three are doing well. I have some funny stories to share about BMO, and Leroy's been a little anxious. We've had cold snaps where he gets really stressed when his routine's disrupted. I think the dry air that's come with winter is irritating him a bit because he's been kind of over grooming. Not to the point of bald spots, but to the point where I see it and I need to take video and like just I don't think he's in any pain and I don't think it's anything like that. I think it's just stress and dry air, but I'm trying to keep an eye on him. But he's been racing around, actually throwing a temper tantrum because he can't go outside very much right now. He has been throwing some temper tantrums. We'll talk about that, but he's doing well. Reepicheep still kind of has the constant wet nose, but he, what is it he carries? Is it the cat? There's a certain virus that some cats can carry that it's not FIV or FELV or anything like that. We've had him tested for those. It's like maybe calcivirus or something where he carries it like his whole life and it just can cause him problems with like constantly having kind of congestion. And as long as his congestion doesn't turn like gross, like yellowish, or he doesn't start developing a cough or it starts clogging up, like indicative of an infection, it's fine. He has allergies and stuff too, so that's been kind of, again, I think the dry air has kind of aggravated him as well. He developed a little bit of a cough, and I was concerned after this last round of antibiotics that he might be developing pneumonia. But is a little asthmatic and does have an inhaler. But when I tell y'all, like we were using it pretty regularly for years, and then he kind of stopped needing it. But I still have it, so I gave him a couple days of treatment from that, and he seems good to go. So just minor things with the kitties, and I and I also think Leroy doesn't like me being gone so much, and I have been gone a lot lately, so I think that's part of his stress too. But no, overall the cats are doing well, and I'm grateful for that. Um, I'm gonna stop here and pick back up. Wow, it is amazing the difference a couple hours can make. Woo, today I have a temper. I am an absolute menace today, and I had been handling it okay until the last few hours. And now not so much, but that's okay. Um, I really want to finish this video tonight, so we're going to finish this, and then I'm going to go decompress for the rest of the night. Did I get any coloring done today? Probably not, but you know, maybe tomorrow. So we'll see. Anyway, where was I? I was talking about the cats. They're doing well. The ice storm that hit Middle Tennessee, if you saw on the news and you're not in the area, Nashville got hit really hard with, it was supposed to be more snow, but as the week went on, it moved more towards ice, and so we got a pretty significant ice storm with some snow. last weekend, and there are still thousands of people. I live north of Nashville, in a rural community, and there are thousands of people around me still that don't have power, that lost power Sunday, I think it was Monday. Um, Not only have we been hit with ice, today was the first day this week that we barely got above freezing. Um, Multiple days this week where we had single digit temperatures, and in this area, the houses just aren't built for that, even if they have power. We use HVAC units mostly with like heat pumps if you're on electric. Even if you're on gas and have a furnace, I think it's like an electrical connection. So, like, even if the power goes out, you still, I don't know. That part drives me crazy. But most of the communities here use some sort of heat pump, electric or gas, and um, the regular electric heat pumps aren't really designed to heat efficiently, as efficiently under 30 degrees. But basically, they stop really being able to heat much at all under 10 degrees. And so most units have like an emergency heat option, which is an expensive heat option because you're using the equivalent of like a space heater to heat your house because it's like interior coils. When I tell you, I have learned so much this week about how HVAC units work, how heat pumps typically work, how our heat pump technically works, how emergency heat works, when you should put on emergency heat. When, if you have a newer unit, it uses an auxiliary heat usually that is kind of like the emergency heat strips. It's a very complicated thing apparently, and I don't know why they had to make it so complicated. Anyway, did a lot of research in that this week. But suffice to say, we have had power mostly up to this point. There was a brief period of time, Sunday night, Sunday night. I don't know. It feels like 2 weeks have went by. I've lost the night. It's either Sunday night or Monday night. Now it was Sunday night. We started having our power off and power back on every 8 to 10 minutes, like it was a cycle. And while, like I said, we had power, it was clicking off and on, and our unit couldn't keep up with that. Couldn't keep heating at that level. Plus, it wasn't safe for the compressor. My husband's computer got halfway fried, it at least corrupted his Windows, so he had to create like a bootable disk and completely reinstall his Windows, and like it's been a thing. But we had to unplug everything, flip all our breakers except for just the stuff that we needed, like the unit, the heat pump, the freezer, fridge, just a very few basic things. And then we had to flip to emergency heat because at least that doesn't have to cycle every time the power comes on, and it's less like the heat strips are less likely to have an issue compared to the compressor with that. Regardless, that night was very cold. Not as I think it got down close to 50 degrees in the house, and it was single digit temps that night. I think it got down to like 9. And after about 12 hours the next morning, it did get fixed. Um, then we were okay for a couple hours. Then our Wi Fi went down, which is not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. However, I do work from home. So, or maybe, yeah. Okay, the power was blinking off and on throughout Monday, but it didn't start cycling till Monday evening. Yes? No. Anyway, I took Monday off. Starting Tuesday, when we lost our Wi Fi access, I had to use like the mobile hotspot option on my phone because so many people, their internet and electricity's down. The Verizon network is very slow around here right now. So I was struggling and I don't have PTO days to take. I am still rating, putting this as a positive because I realize these are minor problems in the grand scheme of things because there are people who have not had power for days. We are in the middle of our small town. So our because the utility vehicles generally use our one of our roads as their main road, because all their trucks and stuff are stored at the end of that road. A lot of our stuff got cleared first. There have been branches down. I don't know if any of you have seen pictures. I might put a couple up in here. Um, Trying to think. Do I want to do this? Yes. Okay, hang on. All right. So this is our backyard. Our big tree at the back of our property, as you can see, is pretty big mess right now. Everywhere's a big mess. If you look for like Nashville ice storm and stuff, you can see some pretty incredible photos of like trees just covering roadways. Even you can see the level of ice on this little pear tree that we've got. It's like a decorative pear tree. You can see the thickness of the ice on these branches. And I took this yesterday, and this happened, what, Sunday? Saturday? So there are still roads here that are ice covered because the sun's not hitting them. There's still trees down on the roads. You can see here where this tree in the front of my house across the street is very problematic because it's been snapping branches off all week into the road. Um, and then you'll probably see here in a minute, part of one fell on one of our neighbor's vehicles. Yeah. And I think since then, the rest of that tree has just split off. I think some of it didn't look like maybe it's damaged the house much, thank goodness, but the rest of that tree split off onto the house. So it has just been, like I said, it's probably been 30 years since we've had an ice event like this. I was a little kid the last time we had this happen. Some little paw prints. The very brief days when our unit was keeping up and it was high 20s, I would let them come out for a few minutes. So I got a few little paw prints on the porch. This leads to me my funny story about BMO. So Monday or whenever we were having the cycling on the power and it got down to like 54 in the house, I was laying on the couch at one point with this comforter on me. And we've had BMO 2 years, maybe close to 3. This girl is not a snuggler. In fact, she very much prefers not to be cuddled and will grumble if you pick her up. But this week, it has been too cold for her. She got up on me. This is a picture of her laying on me. And it's so cute. And I just didn't want to move ever. Usually Winry's on me, but she had a heated pad right next to me. So that's what she was sleeping on. When it comes to most of the day, she prefers the heated pad to me. It's only at night when she wants to lay on me for warmth. Or if for some reason she can't get the heating pads, then she wants to perch on me. I've noticed the better Winry feels, the less she needs to lay on me as much, I guess, because she needs less comfort. So I take that as a good thing. And I still get time with her at night. But this was a rare moment. She wasn't on me, so BMO took the opportunity. And I was joking around with the people at work because I was like, at one point she glared at me and she's like, to me, that glare said, this means nothing. We're not friends. This is simply for survival. And I think this is the only day she laid on me. And then ever since then, she's gotten up to lay next to me a lot more. She's always seemed a little nervous about getting up on like the couch in the living room, in the bed, in the bedroom. I think some of that is because Winry, because she is kind of the alpha cat of those areas. But I think part of it is, my husband raised a good point. We don't know what her experiences were like before she came to us, and she might have been like yelled at or punished for getting up on furniture. That might be one reason she's so nervous about it. But this week she's really, I've seen her get up on the couch more. I've seen her get up on the heating pads more. She laid in the bed with me a little bit one night. Um, I guess all bets are off when it gets cold enough. And she'll have times like this. Like she'll have a week where she seems extra cuddly and sweet. And then the next week she's back to her normal, I'm just going to grumble. I might be purring while you pet me, but I'm also going to grumble and act like I'm not happy about it. She is a diva. She is very independent. She doesn't meow like a normal cat. She just grumbles or growls when she's playing with her toys. And it's funny. She grumbles when she's happy. She grumbles when she's mad. We can't really tell what type of message she's trying to send to us as long as she's not trying to claw us or her tail isn't lashing. Then, we have other signs and we try to keep to those. But she is definitely not a lap cat, except apparently in certain situations. We did get our Wi Fi back up yesterday. Um, But other things have happened this week, which I'm going to briefly touch on in the negatives. But I put all that as a positive because we still have a little bit of a cold snap coming in tomorrow and Saturday. A little bit of snow. I don't think it's going to be very much. A couple days where we're going to go dip into the single digits for lows. Our unit doesn't work perfectly at that level, but it it's enough. And there's uh our water lines have been problematic, and I don't want to say it because I don't want to jinx anything, but I think we figured out maybe a way to help with that a little bit this year. And I'll follow that up in another color and chat because again I don't want to talk too much about it because I am really superstitious about it. um but I will say we have been very fortunate compared to a lot of people in this area that still um, and it's not even necessarily like a lot of people around here thankfully have backup sources of heat, but a lot of them don't. And the problem that comes up is, we have family and friends who've been without power for a few days, but like they're so deep back in a rural country area that like we can't physically get to them and they can't physically get out. Like they would have to hike to even get anywhere where somebody could transport them to a hotel or something. And most of my family is very independent and stubborn. Like my dad offered my cousin to come stay at their house this week because they've been without power and they had well water and that froze up. And they were like, "No, no, we're not gonna leave." And but I think it could be till next week that they're saying it could be next week before power gets restored. And I mean, that happened 20 years ago. It took 2 weeks for my grandparents' power to get restored. They were out in a more rural area than I am. And, but that was 30 years ago. You'd think. This was, like I said, this was a pretty significant event. Um, So just continuing on with this picture, I'm going to add some more glitter gel pens, I think, and then use the white acrylic pen to outline those little steam, the purple things, purple steam curlies that are there. I don't know what you want to call them. My brain is not doing well at this state. And then a good thing is I had to go to Seattle for work last week. Everything went well. If any of this forecast had happened during the time I was gone, I would not have been attending it in person because I learned that lesson a few years ago when I got stranded in Nashville for a couple days and flights canceled. But I tried some different things this time using Uber to and from the airports, and everything went really smoothly. It just because I've went through so much lately, I am I don't have a lot of energy reserves and I've been a lot more fatigued lately and I just had a really hard time. It was a short trip. It was 3 days and I had a really hard time sleeping like the night before the flight, both flights. On the flights I couldn't sleep. I did everything I could to try to allow myself to sleep and get comfortable. I even had the middle seat open on both flights, which is highly unusual for me. So I had room. I had an aisle seat between me and the other person, so we could kind of just stretch out and do our thing. But like everything went great. I didn't have many issues at all, and I'm grateful for that. And that's why I was saying that's a positive. Um, so, well, the majority of this was good things. So I'm proud of myself for that. That's good because there's some huge negative things that I feel like I've got to acknowledge, but I don't know how to explain it. I'm going to try not to go into too much detail on some of this because either A, I can't because there are things that I can't talk about in great detail here. And two, some of the things are still so traumatic that, like, I'm not ready. This will be as much as I can probably talk about them, and I don't know if it'll ever get it. It'll get better, but I don't know if I'll ever be able to go back to these conversations, or at least this first one. So, as some of you know, so this is the negative section. If you don't want to be triggered by pet loss, mental health, bad news, I appreciate you coming by. I'll try to have some time at the end for the finished picture so you don't have to hear it. Um, but just a heads up, that's coming up. Um, like I said, as long as you know, Bagheera passed away in October. Um, it was kind of a traumatic experience, especially compared to other cats I've lost over the years. I still don't know if I'll ever be able to fully talk about it. I have a grief counselor that I'm trying to work through things with, but it is slow going. Um, with my cats, when they've passed away, typically I have them cremated and then I have them come home in a box. He had to stay at the vet because he went through that radiation treatment. He had to wait 3 months before he could be cremated. And that's all I can say is that's all I can say. Anyway, I got a notification beginning of January that he was being sent over. And so I was told to expect a package that Friday. They were going to mail him essentially to me from Nashville. And I said, fine. And when I got that, that was almost 2 weeks ago. Was it really? God, it feels like so much longer. Um, when I opened it, it was a paw print imprint on like a piece of clay, which is beautiful. I mean, I'm glad I have that, but I was like, where are his cremains? So I called the place that did the procedure, and they said, "Oh, he was marked as communal, which means that he got cremated with other pets." And I don't know what happens to them after that. I don't even want to know at this point. And I was I devastated. I've just been devastated. Um, I called the vet's office, and it turns out basically after all was said and done and they investigated, we did everything right. We requested everything correctly. This is a place I don't normally go to. It was a specialist. We had the boxes checked. When they went to fill out the form for the memorial place, somebody forgot to check a box on their form. And so there is no way to get him. It's done. Um, and I it is very traumatic for me. They're those cats are like my kids, and I it is hard for me to reconcile that all of them are here with me except he can't be. And I know he is, and that it's not really him. I know, but it's still a symbolic thing that's important to me. And the specialists were very apologetic about it. The director got involved. There were some refunds that happened. They talked to us in detail about how they're implementing things to make sure that never happens again. I mean, I feel like I'm not going to shame them. I'm not going to say their name. I'm not going to do anything like that because people make mistakes, and this is something that just can't be undone. And there's really nothing, they can't bring him, they can't magically deliver him to me. And if they did at this point, I would be suspicious it's not really him. So they can do a lot of things, but they can't fix this. And so I feel like they did everything they could in their power. And so I'm trying to be understanding, but it is traumatic for me. I mean, it's like if, a human family member, whoopsie, like I know a lot of people don't look at it that way, but I do, and it's important to me. And I feel like they treated it with the appropriate level of shock and dismay. Like they didn't minimize it for me, and I do appreciate that. They did treat it as horrific, like I felt like it should be treated. And so I got a lot of that to work through. That's about all I can say about it. Except I can't stop feeling like I failed him because we didn't get him fixed in time, and then I couldn't even bring him home. And yeah, that's all I can say about that. I talked about some of the things with the storm. I have, ever since that happened, well, really since the 5th, I've been on fragile eggshells. But when that happened 2 weeks ago, that really started 2 weeks of just, I've been doing so well managing stress and decompressing, and like all those tactics just went out the window. And my shoulders and back are like rocks, and it's just been that way for 2 weeks. I have went through multiple events just feeling like something disastrous is going to happen every day. And it was that way through the Seattle trip. And even though everything went smoothly, I still had this level of just absolute panic. And just mentally, I did not handle the trip well. And couldn't sleep well. And then I got back. And with the storm, I worried about power. I worried about the power going out. Um, my parents, of course, were like, "You can come stay with us. The cats will let them have the run of the house. It'll be fine." My parents are very supportive, but the idea of trying to pack them up and their supplies for what would have been probably 3 or 4 days at least at my parents' house, and then trying to get them used to a new area, like I just didn't want to have to go down that road on top of everything. And plus the roads were in such bad condition, I didn't want my dad and my brother out driving because we wouldn't have been able to. Uh, they have like 4-wheel drive, but it would have been dangerous, and I didn't want them to have to do that. Worrying about our water lines all week, all this and that. I have just been not sleeping well at all, like I said, for about 2 weeks. And then yesterday, something happened at my job. I cannot say the word. I cannot say because I don't want. I just can't talk about it much, but it impacted some friends of mine. It impacted me. It impacted my coworkers. It was not great at all, and I knew it was going to happen. And that's just kind of been the final straw. And I have a lot of feelings about it that I cannot adequately express in a social media platform. So we will just leave that alone. I will not be taking questions. If I communicate with you frequently anyway on this channel and you really want to know, you can message me on Instagram or whatever and I can tell you, but I'm not going to be taking any questions on that. It just, and then of course the big thing I was going to note is what happened last weekend. Um I, every day it's a new historical event. There's this meme. It's like, I'm tired of living through historical events. Oh, here's the finished picture, by the way. I might have to put I'm probably gonna have to put some kind of placeholder here while I'm talking, but that's okay because I'm just about done. But there's this funny like song on Instagram, and it's like a meme, and it's like, I'm tired of living through major historical events, and it's from a millennial perspective. And like, I know every day it feels like it's something, particularly in the US. And so I'm not trying to minimize anything traumatic else that has happened, but there was the the incident that happened in Minnesota. I think it's Minnesota, a couple weeks ago, and then what happened last weekend. And again, I've really had to draw a balance between my own traumatic events and the world's traumatic events, and trying to at least stay informed while not whining in a doom scrolling session. That's just going to make me feel worse. And I couldn't stay away from that this weekend, though, because that was just hard. Um, and sadly, the same event that happened a couple weeks ago to a different person. And I'm being very vague for a reason, because of algorithms and filters, and they're looking for keywords and key phrases here. You know, the same type of thing happened a few weeks ago, and I feel like it didn't get as much a reaction as this did. And that in itself is problematic. But I remember being on social media pretty much like an hour or two after that happened and seeing like the very first video, and I just, what what is happening, y'all? Like, I just, I I don't know what else to say. If you are in support of people being treated like that, then, I put my disclaimer at the beginning, but I don't know what to say to you at this point. If you still think that's okay, I don't think there's anything I can do or say that's going to sway you at this point. And all I say is, have the day you deserve, and, go on, I guess. Best of luck. Um, and I just, I don't know. It's terrifying. It's awful. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to go a video. I feel like this type of stuff is important enough to say something about. But everything has been so carefully filtered and censored that I can't talk about it in certain ways without this getting flagged, or this getting, lower on the algorithm. And I have to be careful what I say and how I say it. And that in itself is hugely problematic too. So like, there's just layers upon layers here. And I am just so angry with what happened this week, yesterday, and then this event that happened over the weekend. And like, just so many people are having such a hard time of it right now, and it doesn't need to be like this. And the social justice person part of me is really, really wound up this week. And i'm just I'm exhausted for me, and I'm exhausted for friends and family that have been impacted by like a bunch of recent events. I'm exhausted for the people I mentioned, their families. I'm just exhausted for all of us, and I'm just angry for all of us. And I I have ways that I try to help that I don't talk about on here, because I'm not gonna, t- brag about stuff. But I want to look for more ways to help people through I don't know, aid, donations, volunteer work. I need to find an outlet for this, and one that I can safely do while still keeping myself going. Um, but I think we all should. I'm not saying everybody should snatch up their pitchfork. Well, snatch up their pitchforks. I think we should, really, honestly. I think there's a line that's been crossed too many times at this point, and there are things that should have already been stopped, and they haven't been. But I realized that we can't. And so, in lieu of that, I just say, maybe think about the ways you can help, even just volunteering for a nonprofit organization, making donations if you can. Um, Anything like that is still helping your community. And I think that is the least of things that we could do right now. Like, everybody has limits on what they can do. And some people, physically can't do stuff. And so maybe you can, work for a call center, or like make phone calls on behalf of a nonprofit, or work for like a hotline or something if you have the ability to do things like that, like the mental capacity. I mean, you know, we can all do as much as we can do, but I wish we'd spend more time finding ways to help each other rather than just finding ways to hate each other. And I think that's how I'm going to end this because I don't really know what else to say. Um, it's just, there's, I feel, every day I feel like we're getting inching closer and closer to a breaking point, and that breaking point never comes, and it just continues to get tense and fragile, and then another major event happens, and it feels like things crack further, but like there's a million billion cracks, but like it just hasn't shattered yet. And that scares me because when it does shatter, like when the bottom falls out, it's going to just be massive. And so I just I don't know. But I have a therapist I'm working with to try to work through things, though I wish I could afford to see him like 3 times a week because right now I feel like that's what I need. Um, I'm going to try to come up with some ways artistically or where, as my energy levels allow, to try to get back more into my hobbies, um, to find a way to journal, mess around with watercolors. I don't want to call it art, but not even really art, or trying to teach myself with how to use watercolors, but just to play with them, to do something that is like art therapy. I don't know. Um, Continue investigating this neurodivergent side of me and figuring out like who I am in regards to that. I think some of unlocking some of that has made it the harder for me to mask, as they call it, and go back to just you know cutting off all my emotions and feelings and just powering through what I got to do for the day. Like that's how I've made it to this point, and it's not really gotten me very it's not helping me do me well mentally. um but I think now that I've kind of acknowledged that, it's harder to put the toothpaste back in the tube, so to speak. I think that's part of my problem right now. But that's what we're gonna do. And I'm not gonna say anything about February at this point. We will just take it as it comes. And yeah, I think that's all I can say today. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. And like I said, at least most of this was fairly positive. So, I'm trying really hard. Um, and so Sunday, I should have some completed pages for you. Not what I wanted, but that's okay. Those will probably be from like October to now. And then if I'm doing the Deborah Muller project book pages for February, I'll let y'all know Sunday or Monday. Um, Hopefully I can get back to that coloring series and some other stuff in the upcoming weeks, but the past 2 weeks have been extremely hard, and I think this weekend is just going to be a trying to decompress, hopefully. Um, and next week should be warmer. At least we'll be up above freezing multiple days. I can't believe, y'all, I tell y'all, I can't believe I've had to say in the past week that I miss heat and humidity. And I can't believe I've actually uttered the words, like, it actually feels kind of warm today when we've hit, freezing. Like, it feels warm when we hit freezing. Like, that's how cold this week has been. I'm so hot natured and it's been so cold that I actually thought those thoughts and said those things this week. So that is terrifying personally. And I will be I will be unpacking that with my therapist. No, we have enough. We have enough. That is fine. Anyway, I I hope you are staying warm or staying cool, depending on where you live. Um, that things are going well, and I just I hope for all of us we can stop living through major historical events and major personal historical events as well. If we could just be for a while, I think all of us, if we could just have a quiet period of life where nothing significant happens and we could just kind of be, that sadly, I feel like a lot of us need that. So, anyway, y'all take care. Hopefully, be back Sunday. It's not gonna be a ton of pages, but it'll be something. Thanks, and bye for now.